I was really humbled by how little of the world I'd seen. I was really humbled and how little I'd actually experienced.
I felt like, I don't even want to go to college.
Expected us to achieve a lot,
But we weren't really.
I might have started dealing with issues in my beginning, and I'm not ready.
We weren't really given any guidance, and we didn't do really well by their
Stressful
standards.
period in my life.
Stressful.
Caused
The one that got me
to
into
like spiral.
I
think I was hoping when I came to college just to
They always tell you that you have to have a 4 point and a 45 on the
kind of
MCAT.
feelings of inadequacy of my
I
father.
guess what I really wanted was to leave my parents.
4 years of
Leave my parents.
parties.
community of friends to rely
And so I put up a
on.
good facade of being on task and knowing what's what and doing well, but when in reality, it's very different.
Choose a career, where to live, get a job, get a good job. Education, how much? Do I even like what I'm studying? What do I want to do? Parents expect me to be successful. Friends, who's your friend? Who's not? Be somebody, accomplish. Pressure, 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 pressure.
I think actually I tried to do a lot of things to get people to know that I wasn't happy. But it was difficult for people to see because at the same time I presented myself as being really sure of myself.
Everybody's very friendly and very, I would say, fake. And everything's like, hi, how are you? You know, how's it going? But I mean, after a month, that gets old.
There's always this constant like information from your environment that you're kind of like you're not cool or something like that.
So then I went through this whole rigmarole to get let in at Michigan, got in here, didn't have a place to live, lived on my sister's floor for a month, and it was just like everything that could go wrong did.
I very frequently didn't feel like I was doing anything to help at all, and it was pretty frustrating to me that I couldn't help my sister.
I don't participate a whole lot in class, and I sort of slack my work sometimes, pretty often as was the case.
I felt like I was completely trapped. You know, whatever I do is going to be the wrong thing. I'm never going to finish my degree. Even if I did, I'll never get a job of the sort I would want.
I was overly concerned with school, and I was a wet blanket, and I was cynical. I was very cynical.
I had some anxiety about what direction I was going to be pursuing in college because I didn't really know academically what field I wanted to pursue. And I felt, I had some familial pressures.
I had a major life change. It was not a sudden trauma like a death of someone or 9/11, but it was a dramatic change of, this doesn't sound enough to set it off, but it was a change of job, of location, of identity, of friends. I felt that I had built a life and had been ripped up from that life by the roots and planted somewhere else. And the other place I was planted was a wonderful place. That's where I wanted to be.
You're in a situation where you're being evaluated constantly. And it just, the combination of sort of trying to maintain your equilibrium and keep producing at a high level and being evaluated, and then fighting various colleagues who have issues of their own.
Thing is that the world's just going too fast. You gotta go, 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 move forward, keep up, 1,000,000 miles an hour. Get ahead, get ahead, get ahead. Ahead of what? Ahead of the game. Be a winner, stay on top. Keep one step ahead. Don't let them see you sweat. Be fit, be strong, survival of the fittest. You can't get sick. Sick is unacceptable.
When I talk to students and say they're not doing well academically, so they're coming in to talk to me about that. And once we get in here, I say, well, what else is going on? Is there something else? There's a sense that they can't pin it on anything, right? It isn't because they just broke up with a boyfriend, or it isn't because they're in a class that was tough for them. And there's nothing else that's wrong.
I had transferred to the music school, and I found myself being really disillusioned. I'd There were days when I wouldn't get out of bed and I just didn't want to go to classes or I didn't eat and I just didn't feel myself at all.
I started to kind of slide back into the groove I'd been before.
He is so sensitive when he's depressed, and little things he can get extremely angry, or he can get angry at himself. He walks out of the room, and I feel like I'm walking on eggshells a lot of the time.
I guess almost immediately when I stepped in here, it kind of like went downhill for my first year. And what's the word? Too cooped up with yourself, or like something like that. It's like to actually know that that something was actually wrong.
I think the passivity and the hopelessness were primary indicators, but there were certainly other strong things. I think I was very angry sort of at fate.
I often had bandages on my arm, here or there, and it was kind of like one of those things where, like I was embarrassed, but at the same time I wanted someone to notice, because I wanted someone to kind of say, like, are you okay? Someone to pay attention, because I was really hurting.
We had a student once who had just broken up with a significant other and was feeling like his world was coming down, wasn't able to get a grasp on reality or life at that point. And he took pills to either try to commit suicide or a cry for help or reach out for help. The resident advisor is informed, talked with the student, and then that week we spent a lot of time talking one-on-one, just to kind of reach out and let him know that there is somebody outside of a peer who is in the building, who cares. We will try everything in our power to help them.
I wasn't an athlete or a bookworm, so I easily fell into the category of using drugs. And from there, I got kicked out, and my friend was like, well, I have some acid, you want a trip? It's not the best thing to do, but I was like, all right. And I just got really depressed. Well, the symptoms of depression had been building up, and I had no idea what the symptoms were. Or I didn't know they were symptoms of depression. I thought they were side effects from all the acid I had taken.
I think when you're thinking about depression too, especially among college students, one of the things to think about is, has there been a recent increase in substance use? Sometimes when people begin to feel depressed, they may turn to substances to help themselves feel better. Sometimes people just feel very irritable and feel that taking a substance will kind of just take the edge off for them so that they can get through the day and get along with people.
It was one of those semesters where I just worked really, really hard, and then afterwards there was nothing. I had nothing to feel happy about, and then I just started, I started shoplifting, and it was awful.
There were a series of incidents that I pinned it on immediately, having to do with the battle over my tenure. I would wake up early in the morning, 4 a.m. or something, and just pace around.
The fall of my junior year, I really started to just feel a lot of just general anxiety, and I started having some panic attacks, I guess, where I just would feel like I couldn't really breathe.
And I think a lot of people just simply aren't aware of what the symptoms of depression are, and they aren't aware of how prevalent it is. There's a huge percentage of people that suffer from depression needlessly that don't really understand or realize that they're depressed.
But then maybe you ask someone if they've ever felt this way, and they look at you kind of funny, and you think, oh man, they think I'm a freak, a loser.
Right after all the awful things happened, I felt like I've entered a new stage in my life. Like a despicable human being.
If I felt any stigma, it's from myself, in terms of I've seen it as a loss of strength. I felt very angry at myself at times that I wasn't able to deal with this.
I had this feeling like, why am I feeling like this? I must be doing something wrong. I must not be, totally in tune with my faith or my religion if I'm feeling like this.
Teachers definitely wanted reasons for what was happening, like my not showing up to class and doing poorly in classwork. But I always thought of something else to say because I didn't want to let in. I didn't think it was their, it was any of their business to know.
There are ways for students to withdraw from the class and not hurt their academic standing or be removed from the university.
I went and told my father that I needed help and I needed to see a therapist, and my dad just exploded. What the hell are you talking about? My daughter is perfect. She does not need to see, a therapist. What is wrong with you? I give you everything, you want.
There is such a stigma attached to depression, and I was afraid that it would affect how they viewed me as a teacher and a scholar. And there's also a sense of what we call sort of, race pride, and the idea that you don't give the white community any reason to judge you adversely.
The concept of depression is kind of different back home. Yeah, it's not even discussed.
For Asian cultures, depression or mental health in general, mental disorder in general, has a significant stigma attached to it. To be considered to have depression or mental disorder is worse than sometimes having terminal cancer.
It wasn't that I didn't know it, it was that I wasn't willing to admit it or willing to say it out loud. And if I wasn't willing to say that as someone involved in medicine and psychology, how can anybody be?
And I was afraid that it was from the acid and they were going to lock me up for the rest of my life.
No choices, nothing I could do about anything. Nothing I could do about
I was very
anything.
much stuck in the moment.
And they were going to lock me up for the rest of my life.
I was hurting myself because I wasn't going to my class.
Sadness, homesickness.
I was hurting myself.
Became just this hopeless
that I was worthless. I wasn't going to.
Nothing could help me, nothing could save me.
That I would always be lonely.
I had some not
that I was
so good
worthless.
thoughts.
There's this whole sense of hate.
Nothing could help me, nothing could save me. And that I was just like this dead little baby.
I should have died. So then all of a sudden, all those times I've ever taken pills, why didn't come up? And why didn't I take, a few more? I've had several crises during graduate school, and I've been to the emergency room several times. They usually take you right back because they knew that you'd just taken a load of pills. There was this one doctor, and it can be really demeaning, and he was just like, it's really stupid of you to take a bunch of pills. You're in graduate school, you have a life. Why would you do something so dumb? And I refused to talk to him. I refused to answer any questions.
The crisis came in about the end of March, and that was a time when I just felt like I really couldn't take anymore. By that time, I wasn't talking to my roommates at all, and I wasn't really talking to anyone on my floor at all, and I wasn't eating. I started restricting myself to a 100 to 400 calorie diet every day. At that time, I was intensively researching on the issue of women and suicide. It made me start thinking about ways that I could attempt suicide again. And my DSI read that, and she was kind of taken back, whoa, why would you have this point of view? And so she kind of, are you okay? And that kind of broke me. And I started crying, and I just told her, no, I'm not okay.
I guess when you start, being really depressed, and I start thinking of suicide and stuff like that, I guess trying to get, control over the situation, I guess that was the crisis. In a sense, I think I mentioned before to my close friends, it was like kind of like an identity crisis.
Within a year, we got pregnant and had the baby, and I was 50 at the time that happened. And, you know, that was wonderful. But it was like the baby is there, and all of a sudden, you know, I've not only given up my job and all this stuff, but I'm a father again.
Because it was getting so bad, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night, and I would be watching television. I was having homicidal and suicidal thoughts, and I was afraid. It wasn't like me planning out how I was going to go about killing somebody. There was more images in my head, an image of, you know, if I walked past the kitchen, I would see the pizza cutter in my mind, and I would see the pizza cutter slashing skin in my mind, and then I would think of my roommate in my mind, you know.
It finally came to a head over the summer, toward early June. I had broken up with the boyfriend again, for good, and I was just beside myself. I walked into my guidance counselor's office and announced to him that I was leaving and there was really nothing he could do to stop me. So I went back to my parents and spent about 2 months sitting around, not doing a lot.
She wasn't herself. She was crying, she didn't feel like she had control over things, and it didn't get better.
My mom did come home for lunch, and I said, I just can't take this anymore. And I couldn't even call a psychiatrist. She had to call one for me, because I still couldn't pick up the phone and say, I have a problem.
Is there something wrong with me? I can keep up. No worries. Just take it day by day.
I emailed my advisor and I told her, she knew about the depression at that point, and I told her that I'm, you know, drinking Mountain Dews and smoking cigarettes. And so she emailed me back and said, well, at least that's all you're doing. And so at that point, I emailed her back and I said, well, actually, that's not all I'm doing. Soon afterwards, I did go to treatment.
She sent me to go see my family physician, and he had me fill out the little 10-question survey about how much you've been sleeping and has your appetite changed and whatnot. And so they put me on medication, and I continued to see my psychologist in Mount Pleasant.
I called the University Health Service, the line, I think it's an emergency line, and they said, well, you know, what you describe are just our classic symptoms of depression. And I was really relieved because that meant that, you know, this wasn't just my own sort of idiosyncratic problem, but it was actually a clinical condition that could be dealt with somehow.
On my way to class, I stopped by the health services, and they were just like, oh, you're really depressed. So they put me in a police car and took me to the hospital and enrolled me in an outpatient program for depression, a 2-week program. They just educate you really about depression and get you through that critical 2 weeks where they start you off on the road to recovery pretty much.
Why am I feeling like
You don't need antidepressants. Like, depression is
I'll just shut down.
willpower type of thing.
It's the only way I know
I
I
didn't think that it was like a total biological.
It doesn't even matter so much if
I must not be, you know, totally in tune with my
as much as if I'm
faith.
productive.
Their way of looking at
I'm
students.
just going to have to not be limited by what my insurance covers.
I think they think we're all depressed.
Talking with a therapist really didn't do anything at all because I knew what my problems were. I could come up with causes for them. There wasn't anything I really needed help sorting out, but the psychiatrist gave me a prescription. I was so much hung up on doing it on my own, and I felt like medication was just something that was, you know, it was going to take over my role. You know, I wouldn't be doing anything active.
They have a great fear that medication is somehow going to change their personality, or somehow if they take medication, they feel it won't be me. And in truth, medication doesn't alter anyone's personality. but it certainly can make them function in a way where they're much more effective and happier and not struggling every day to try to get through each day.
I went to the doctor and she recommended that I take an antidepressant. Took that for a while, but decided that I just didn't think it was doing all that much for me. As far as she was concerned, what could be done had been done. And I sort of felt like I really hadn't gotten anywhere and just stopped taking it entirely.
There's a variety of ways to treat depression. The most effective tends to be a combination of both counseling and medication.
To me, I couldn't explain to them why I was upset, because if I had to do that, I would explain, well, you know, Mom and Dad, I've been caught shoplifting, I have a criminal record, and I've been sleeping around with people, and I'm not doing really well in school. I mean, I couldn't say that to them, so they would just be like, why are you so upset? And I couldn't give them the exact, I couldn't tell them why.
One of the difficulty, I think, for us is recognizing that different students from different culture may present with different presentations and different symptoms, and therefore they do not receive the treatment that they should.
She didn't focus on my problems, and it was kind of like she knew I was self-mutilating. She knew I wasn't eating. I was starving myself, but that was all she was concerned about. And I could definitely see how she would be concerned about that, but there was stuff beneath that I think I needed to talk about, stuff beneath that needed to be sorted out.
Even if you identify that they are depressed, and trying to get them into treatment is a challenge because of the stigma attached to it.
The most frustrating thing for me is that John has been seemingly unable to finish his PhD, that he just is really having a hard time finishing the research and getting it done, and I feel like I'm going to be in this state of limbo forever and ever.
There are things that are really important to me, my religion being one of them, and that's a reason that I need to get out of this. I think I might have felt that if I had conveyed that something wasn't right to my parents, they would have thought that too, which was the opposite, you know. They would never have thought that, and my mom didn't think that when I did tell her, you know.
I think that other kind of more spiritual methods are not seen as legitimate, which didn't stop me, of course, but it stops me from telling people about them.
You know, I guess I have no idea what my future really is.
Well, the immediate future is finishing school.
Hope, that's the first thing that comes to mind.
What do you think the future holds for you?
I'm really pretty psyched about the future. I don't see depression being a problem for me that I can't handle. And I think that as long as I keep working with my psychiatrist, this is something I can certainly live with and do everything I plan to do anyway.
I still have bad thoughts, but I think about it differently. Now, these days, I'm just depressed, and that's fine. I can live with being depressed. I can't stand being depressed about being depressed.
Sometimes I think my depression and other problems are just an insurmountable barrier to just doing things that I might want. I guess I'm somewhat optimistic, but there's always a reserve of pessimism that I'm going to cling on to. It's a good friend.
And I guess for me, it happens so often, this kind of like cycle happens so often, I'm kind of like used to it in that sense, so.
I want to say hope, I want to be optimistic and just say hope. That's the first thing that comes to mind. But that's only because I'm feeling okay right now. And so I can't give like a straight out answer as far as what the future holds for me, just because it depends so much on my mood and my feeling.
Right now I'm at a point, if I was in a position again where it started to come up, I could easily, very quickly identify what was wrong, fix it, and make sure that it didn't progress.
I tend to refer to my life as a walking narrative, and that it's all sort of unfolding. Going through a life with so many ups and downs is in fact a journey, and one that should be recognized as being heroic. And that, I think that might even like take some of the stigma off of it.
I think what would really help is if, in the same way that we're saying faculty are people, faculty treated students the same way. There's not a homework problem that needs to be solved, right? It's like, just like after the homework problem has been dealt with in office hours, just how's it going? A sense, I think it would help a lot if faculty were informed as to what steps they can take.
Listen to yourself and what you're really feeling, and talk to the people who know you well.
If you do take medication, don't like stop in the middle because it's really bad.
I think you have to take a practical approach and say whatever works. That means don't stop until it works.
Although it seems that you can't climb out of it, that eventually you kind of have to climb out of it somehow.
It might help me be more open to other people, because it might help me figure out how to be effective not only in my own life, but in trying to contribute to the lives of other people. To see a strength in yourself that you didn't realize you had, to understand the tricks that the mind can play on you, and to grow in some way.
I would encourage friends and family members that maybe notice something different going on with someone that they care about to not be afraid to find out what's wrong.
Don't be afraid or feel like you're betraying anything you've taught yourself or you learned from others by seeking professional help.
I think when I began to feel better was when I wanted to just crow from the rooftops, you know, listen, I mean, you don't have to feel this way.
I just stress the importance of knowledge of the symptoms. Because if you don't know what the symptoms are, you don't know you're depressed. And when I found out that all these symptoms that I had were for depression, it was like this huge, it was like the whole world was lifted off my shoulders. It's just like, wait, this can be fixed, you know? And then from there, I don't want to say it's easy from there, but that's a huge step, is that first step.
I'm here, so you can be here too. Life is so tough sometimes, and when you're depressed, I mean, it just seems like a dead-end blackness, and there's nothing out there. You know, you don't want to get out of bed or anything, but I mean, on your good days, everything is just so beautiful and so precious, and those days really, really, truly outweigh the dark days.
If you're one of the, 72% of depressed people who are not letting yourself be helped, stop it. Go get help. I do.